Thanks so much for hanging out with us here on the Daily Racing Form YouTube. I'm Gino Buccola alongside David Aragona. We're going to head out to Gulfstream Park and take a look at race number 9 on Saturday. It's the Sunshine Sprint. As we do, if you can head on down and subscribe to the YouTube channel, that will help us out, and you can get ready for a bunch of previews we're going to have next week, David, with Pegasus Day coming up. There's going to be a stacked card that we're going to be looking at, previewing a lot of those stakes races. Let's pad the bankroll this week as we look at the Sunshine Sprint. Here's the field. You have some horses that are sharp, that have been running really well last we've seen them. Comedy Town was an excellent claim for Safety Joseph Jr. Damon's Mound was a multiple graded stakes winner. We just haven't seen him in over a year, and now he moves into the Bill Mott barn. You have a sharp horse like Classify, who comes off of a win against First Level Allowance Company last time out. So there are some sharp horses in here right now who are on good form, and others that have not done a whole lot wrong on the track.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. When I was handicapping this race, I got the Damon's Mound, and I was saying to myself, oh, nice to see this horse back for his 4-year-old campaign. And I kind of had to do a double take when I realized he was making his 5-year-old debut, had missed all of his 4-year-old season. Sometimes the years blend together with these horses, but Damon's Mound is coming back off the long layoff here, and he's facing that 3-headed monster from the Safety Joseph stable, all horses that look like they're contenders in this race.
Let's take a look at what Timeform US thinks about the pace projector here. So Damon's Mound, fresh, coming into a new barn. Be curious what tactics they choose with him, because certainly one of the classier, if not the classiest horse in this field, which is a Florida bred field. I mean, he's done all of his work against Open Company.
Yeah, and I think this pace projection has a lot to do with the fact that Damon's Mound had been involved in a lot of fast-paced races towards the end of his 3-year-old season in 2023. So while he's not necessarily a need-the-lead type, you know that he's got that natural tactical speed that just comes easy to him. But it remains to be seen what we get from those 3 Safety Joseph runners. You see them lined up right across the track on the pace projector. The 1 Classified, the 3 Comedy Town, and the 6 Mish, all stablemates. I can't imagine the tactics are going to be the same with each of them. So we'll see what the instructions are and which one of them gets the most aggressive ride.
And as we meet the field here, Classify is one of them. And honestly, all 3 of them are pretty live on paper. Classify was an impressive winner last time out. David, when you look at the last maybe 6 or 7 races, he's really stepped up his game on the buyer scale. Also, all 3 wins at Gulfstream Park, stepping up into stakes company, but he's been facing Open Company. So this is kind of a lateral move when you go from Open Company into a Florida bred stakes here. Yeah, it's hard to really knock that performance with a 97 buyer speed figure there, but he does draw the rail in a tricky race. He's kind of versatile. I'm just curious what the tactics will be like for him. I could see the rail being a little tough.
Yeah, and coming into stakes company for the first time, he does have to come off Lasix for the first time in his career. So that's something that you might want to consider, because other horses have prior form racing without Lasix. He does not. He did look good at that most recent victory that we watched. He has a horse that's settled for a lot of minor awards, so nice to see him at least get that victory last time out. But he was facing a horse that day, Born Noble, who took a lot of money coming off the layoff and just didn't really return with his A effort. Yep. So I think it made it an easier spot for Classified to get to the winner's circle, stepping up against some tougher foes here.
Number 2 is Bandit Rocket. So I'm never a fan of the layoff after the layoff. He had a 5-month layoff from April to September, shows back up in September, and then another 4-month layoff. On top of that, a spotty work tab, and he feels like he probably needs a career best to contend with some of the top horses in here.
Yeah, he was beaten 10 lengths by a horse who's not even considered to be one of the major contenders in here in pure class just 3 starts ago, and just does not own speed figures that make him any kind of contender in this race.
Comedy Town, one of those 3 Safety Joseph Jr. Runners, was claimed in March for $25,000 by that very sharp barn. And since then, 3 wins, 2 of them stakes wins, also grade 2 place, finishing 3rd in the grade 2 Phoenix. Loves Gulfstream Park, has speed, can sit off a little bit, can pass horses. Is a 3-month break to deal with. But I mean, off some of that recent form, I think he's one of the horses to beat, no doubt. This was his win a couple starts back at Gulfstream Park when he's winning the Benny the Bull. And this was over a muddy track that day. But the race in the Phoenix when finishing 3rd behind Federal Judge, that was not bad either, David. He just got claimed. This barn was able to improve him, and he feels like he's a major player in here.
Yeah, and it seems like in addition to the barn change, it was the switch over to the dirt course that just woke this horse up because somehow he made it to his 6-year-old season having never tried the dirt before, just racing exclusively on turf and synthetic, despite having some pedigree for the dirt. Well, Staffy Joseph Jr. got him on it, and he reeled off those 3 victories in a row, earned the 100 buyer. That's the one of the top numbers in this field when he won the Smile Sprint over this course during the summer. And you want to note, that's his best race. It was on a fast track. It's surrounded by 2 victories, but they were slower speed figures on wet track. So if he gets fast going on Saturday, maybe that's his preferred kind of footing. And I'm not going to hold the loss in the Phoenix against him. He was beaten by 2 really nice horses that day, coming off a bit of a layoff, but he's certainly dangerous.
Yeah, and what I liked about that last effort too, he was second through a lot of the race, and he loomed up and he took a shot at the leader. He was no match for that runner, but I always like to see when horses loom up and they're in the race to try to win the race. That was the case for Comedy Town last time out. His figure stepped up quite a bit, as you mentioned, on dirt. He was just in nice form and a major player in here. Loco Abarrio, I had one of the more difficult times with because he has a high ceiling. If you're looking at the daily racing form past performances, on the bottom of the page, you see him winning a race at Gulfstream, earning a 96 buyer speed figure, sitting just off the pace. A race like that would stack up really well in here. But he has 10 runner-up efforts, and he's a horse who doesn't mind settling for some of those minor awards. And coming off of a win 2 starts back at Gulfstream, he just didn't really fire at all last time out at Tampa and was basically ease. So it's tough playing horses off races like that. You can get a little more value when you do. What's the read on Loco Abarrio here, David?
Yeah, the last race is obviously a concern. He was bet down to 4-5 that day and just did not show up at all. Was done by the time they got to the quarter pole in that short field, beaten by a horse, Pure Class, who we'll get to next, who just doesn't really look like he's fast enough to be a contender in a race like this. You mentioned he's got some of that back class, but even when he was in better form earlier this season, he was no match for Comedy Town. We saw him actually get defeated by Comedy Town in that replay we looked at of the Benny the Bull. So it's just a little hard for me to envision him winning a race like this, even if he's able to rebound.
Pure Class is next one up. He was second last time out. It was in that field of 4 where he actually finished in front of Loco Abarrio. Just kind of ran around the track, though. Big Martini was the one who was always going to win that race. He was a Florida bred stakes winner last year at Tampa. The overall form is not bad. He needs to step up against this group. There are a couple other tough foes in here.
Yeah, he's making his 4-year-old debut, so I suppose there's a little bit of upside here, but his top buyer is a 78, and that just doesn't really put him in the mix or the conversation to win a race like this.
Mish is the third of the 3 Staffy Joseph Jr. trainees. And what I like about him is he's drawn to the outside of those 3. And as we were pointing out when looking at the pace projector, all 3 of them have a similar running style where they want to be forward, can probably sit off a little bit. And I think that could help Mish needing to sit off. He had an easy win last time he was in with Florida Breds. And if you look at some of the horses he was facing last year, David, you'll see Skelly, multiple graded stakes winner, Sibelius, who has some back class. Lightning Tones just came back and won a stakes race last weekend at Gulfstream Park. So I think he fits pretty well with this group. It'll just come down to the trip. What are some of your thoughts on Mish?
Yeah, this horse is pretty good. I mean, he does kind of feel like White Abarrio's body double because he's going out for the same connections and he looks just like that horse. He was actually beaten by him 2 back. And he's pretty talented, just, not a grade 1 winner. He got back to form last time to win that allowance race. I don't love the field that he was beating. The runner-up Gatsby, who we'll get to, just feels like he's not really in top form anymore. So that was kind of a race that Mish had to win, and he did so. He's now an 8-year-old. I wonder if he's still able to produce those 90-plus buyers that we had seen from him in the past. But, I mean, he is a horse that you kind of know what you're going to get from. I mean, he typically runs well at these kind of levels, and he's got that good tactical speed.
Damon's Mound won his first 2 starts. One of them was the Grade 2 Saratoga Special. He is a multiple graded stakes winner, and he hasn't done a whole lot wrong throughout his career. He was really precocious. Then he kind of went off form for a little bit, and then most recently when we saw him towards the end of 2023, he was back in pretty good form. His last race was actually in the Malibu where he was behind Speedboat Beach and Jazzy, Giant Mischief. That feels like a long time ago for that being the Malibu. But Bill Mott takes over a year layoff, and we know Bill Mott can do a great job with horses just like this, getting them in his program, getting them ready, and getting them ready to fire off a long layoff.
Yeah, I don't know exactly why this horse missed all of his 4-year-old season and was off for so long, but he has been working with a spotty tab coming back for this. He's missed some time. You could see there are gaps in the workouts, particularly between November 30th and December 31st, but it seems like he's doing well coming into this race. I haven't been able to watch any of his recent workouts. I think looking at the work tab from January 7th, he might have outworked Bull Journey in that gate drill because Bull Journey was credited with a gate drill that day, just 2/5 slower than Damon's Mound. So maybe that's a good sign. I like this horse a lot as a 3-year-old. I mean, he was in some fast-paced races. He was involved in those paces, hung around well a number of times, ran especially well in that stakes win at Charlestown that I know didn't get much of a buyer, but he was just involved in a crazy pace that day that fell apart at the end and still was able to win. I think this horse is really good, and if he can take any kind of step forward off that 3-year-old form, he'll be tough for these to handle. We'll just see what price he is off this very long break.
Be a starting point for him now as a 5-year-old. Let's round out the field with Gatsby. He actually won this race back in 2022. He was third in this race in 2023. So he has ability. The problem, David, he's 0 for his last 7, and he only has 2 victories since that win in the 2022 edition of this race. So he's just not in his best of form. And you pointed out he was just no match for Mish last time out.
Yeah, oddly, he's got the top buyer in the field of 103, and that was earned in this race 3 years ago. It just feels like he's not the same horse now as a 7-year-old that he was 3 years ago. And based on all of his recent form, it's just really hard to build a case for this horse at this point in his life.
Let's take a look at selections for this one, the Sunshine Sprint. David, who are you going to put on top here?
I don't love taking horses like Damon's Mound off extended layoffs of this type. I just couldn't quite warm up to any of that Saffie Joseph trio. I think Comedy Town is the most dangerous, but he's also likely to be the shortest price among those runners. And I just thought Damon's Mound was even better than maybe he looks on paper as a 3-year-old. And if Bill Mott has him ready to go off the layoff, I think it'll be tough for this field.
Yeah, if he shows up with his A game, they're probably all running for second. I'll put him in the 3rd spot. I'll use the Saffie Joseph Jr. runners around that one. We have the same 4, just in a slightly different order. I'll give Mish a little bit of a lean, just thinking that maybe with the outside draw that could keep him out of some of the traffic. He could sit a little bit in the clear if need be, maybe sit off the pace a little bit and grind it on home. So however you're playing them in race 9 on Saturday at Gulfstream Park, we wish you the best of luck.